Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. And as you can see, as it's starting to get a bit darker, a little bit sooner, days are a little bit chillier, we back out with the dressing gown. Don't know how long it's going to continue. Might just be today, but yeah, we'll wait and see. With that being said, it was a pretty full-on weekend. There wasn't much in the way of eventful stuff, but there are some talking points. Some pretty decent action over in Mexico, also in Australia, Auckland, I believe, and then Las Vegas. So as we do, we're going to pretty much just run through, the fights, the ones that were of interest, the ones that I can remember, because, yeah, there were quite a few. But starting off with the Mexico card, look, I'm not going to go into the entire undercard, but there was some interesting fights there. The Mendoza versus Ramos fight ended in a third round KO, which could make its way onto that KO of the Year awards when you take someone's legs away to the point where they're trying to get up and their body's not functioning correctly. That could possibly be a move. So that one took place third round KO. Now the main event of that card, which was Eduardo Rocky Hernandez against Thomas Mattice, this is where the controversy comes in. And yes, there was a little bit of controversy. So prior to the match, when I did basis picks, I kind of thought that Rocky Hernandez isn't going to be able to knock Thomas Mattice out, but Mattice may come on strong towards the end of the fight, but Rocky will win the match via like a decision, and Mattice will almost like kick himself that he didn't do more earlier on. Well, something very similar to that happened. It just happened inside 6 rounds instead of 12. Now, there was a head clash which caused a cut underneath the right eye of Eduardo Hernandez in, I think, the second round, second or third. And then in the fourth, I think it was the fourth or the fifth round, was it the end of the fourth? Yeah, I think it was the end of the fourth. Mattice actually caught Eduardo Hernandez coming in with a really short, sharp uppercut, which was very sort of on the blind side of the referee. There was also a few other moments where some heads kind of came together, came close in the bout, but that caused a cut over the right eye of Eduardo Hernandez. No, it was the left eye, sorry, of Eduardo Hernandez. And that cut eventually was deemed to be serious by the doctor and obviously the corner. Now I don't know if it was the corner telling the doctor no, he can't compete with this cut, he can't compete with this cut, or if the doctor was the one that came over and said, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We don't like how this cut's sitting. Now I'm assuming that prior to this, the corner were informed that this cut was caused by a head clash. Hence why maybe they had seen, oh, okay, let's get the referee to wave this one off, as opposed to have been caused by a punch. I assume that if that cut had been caused by a punch, they probably wouldn't have made as much of a deal about it as they did. But again, I don't know if they were the ones that called the referee and the doctor over, or if it was the doctor that beckoned to the referee, said, I want to see that. So either way, it went to a technical decision after the 6th round. So it was at the start of the 7th where the fight was eventually called off. And at that point, it was 3 different scorecards. There was a 59-56 card. There was a 58-55. And then there was a 57-55. I think that was the correct scorecards. I could be slightly off on that one. I think it was 50. Was it 59? Yeah, 59, 55. no, 59, 56. I think 58, 56, and 58, 55. I think those were the scorecards. But either way, Thomas Mattice ended up losing via a unanimous technical decision. He was not happy. Him and his team, they all walked out just immediately out of the ring in disgust. They was all complaining, look, that weren't caused by no head clash. And it was like, and the cut ain't even that bad. Why are you stopping it for that? That's a minor cut. I know they walked past Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith in the front row. I don't know if anything has been said. I haven't seen any of the interviews which may have taken place since then. So it would be good to find out sort of what Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith and that think of that situation and what could happen moving forward. But at the very least, I do think that Thomas Mattice deserves a rematch based on how that was sort of how that came about. Now, the thing is, with that scenario, there is a moment in that exchange where I could possibly see that the referee thought it was caused by a clash of heads. There's a moment when after Rocky Hernandez dips down and gets caught with like the grazing shot from the uppercut, he comes up into sort of the space of Mattice, and Mattice puts his shoulder on his chest, and his head is like very, very close to like his head, like the afro part of his hair is like very close to part of his head. He's quite close to him. They're not touching, but the referee's at an angle where he probably doesn't even see that they're not touching. And then as soon as they pull apart, you see Rocky Hernandez like wipe the side of his face. So if in that moment, if you see that and then you start to see the blood trickling, maybe the referee has thought that a clash has been initiated at that moment. So I want to give him a bit of grace on that because I saw that scenario and I thought, okay, that's potentially what may have happened. But that being said, it was the wrong call. They do have abilities to use instant replay, especially when it comes to sort of WBC sanctioned bouts and whatnot. So yeah, I think if there's justice about Mattice should get a rematch. They should have to run that one back. Now, after that we had the card in Australia, David Nika versus Tommy Karpency. Now I didn't see a huge amount of the undercard on this one, and to be honest, I was only interested in that match and also the rematch between Hemi Ohio and Faigo Opelu. I predicted that Ohio would get the win, and he did. So yeah, I thought that he would get the revenge, he would get the win. I believe it was on points, which is also what I predicted. I didn't think he had the ability to knock out Faigo, but I did think that he would be able to outwork him and stay safe enough on this one. Now I didn't actually get to see that fight. I can't remember what happened. I think I may have fallen asleep or I may have just missed it. And then obviously I got to the main event. Not really much to say about that. David Nika beat Tommy Karpency in the third round. I did predict he'd beat him inside 4 rounds. I said any more than that, and he's got to consider his aspirations at any type of world level. But I mean, obviously Karpency is a light heavyweight. Came up for 3 weeks' notice, but he was a somewhat last minute replacement. So I won't sort of air him out too much on that particular occasion. But yeah, I see some stance deficiencies in Nika. He's got good punch power, but he doesn't seem to, even though he manages to get them out, he doesn't seem to know how to work well with people that are smaller than him. He's like 6'6", so yeah, maybe that just is a mechanical thing. I'd have to see more with him facing taller guys to see if that's the case, because when it's the smaller guys, he just looks very sort of cumbersome, a little bit stiff-legged as well. It's just I don't know, it's not really the moments that I would want to see from someone that's supposed to be like the next big prospect. But that being said, there's still, there's work to do, but there are the ingredients there. So I guess we'll just wait and see kind of how that plays out. Next, let's move over to the PBC card. Now, I actually had a little accumulator on all the fights, and this is where the accumulator messed up on 2 occasions. Actually technically it was 3. Roman Villa got beat by Ricardo Salas Rodriguez. I think it was third round KO. I haven't seen the fight, so I don't know how that happened, but I'm surprised, as you know, I thought this was supposed to be a layup fight for Villa. So that pretty much busted the accumulator. I did think Villa would win just based on, you know, I guess the records and trajectories and how they kind of see him. You build him up so that you can get one of your other guys to take the scalp later on. That's sort of how I felt the fight was supposed to be. But I need to watch it to see ultimately what happened. But yeah, Villa got iced in 3 rounds. Also, I predicted that on my card that Rolly Romero would win via, I figured he'd win via a stoppage. They would want him to be back in there with someone, get a highlight reel stoppage to bring the stock back up to put him in another big fight. He ended up winning, but he went the distance. Again, it's not a fight I watched. I haven't seen all the fights from the show. But yeah, he went the distance. Caleb Plant. I did predict Caleb Plant would knock out Trevor McCumby, but I did not expect McCumby to be as good or as surprising as he was, and maybe neither did Caleb Plant. But he had Caleb Plant on the floor 3 separate times. Only one of them was called a knockdown. It's funny because you had Mauro Ranello and Joe Goosen, sorry, they were arguing about whether a shot even landed. There was a shot that landed on the shoulder, and then there was looked like a little bit of a push, then another shot which didn't connect, or it did connect. But either way, he went down, went flying through the ropes. Referee counted him. This was after the second round where we got hit with a big I think it was like a overhand right. And then it looked like a bit of the chin. I think he got hit also like a little bit of a forehead to the chin, which ended up, I think, taking his legs away from him as well. But the referee ruled that one as just a no knockdown, like a drag down. Another time he ended up getting flung to the floor, you know, like it was Greco-Roman wrestling. And McCumby was about the action. So as much as I was kind of shitting on him prior to the bout, I'd never heard of him before. They gave us some bits of his background on the broadcast that I saw this morning, and yeah, apparently he was a pretty decorated amateur, and he did this, did that, and he was pretty handy, economic with the work, but a big power puncher. You can see why he had 21 knockouts in his 21 knockouts in his 28 bouts prior. Pretty heavy-handed, but Caleb Plant eventually managed to get himself in gear, showed the class, showed the work rate, some good punch picking, but a lot of good body work in up close to stop McCumby from being able to get extension on the hooks, some good uppercuts up the middle. The way it ended though in the 9th round was a little bit, I would say, I'm not gonna, it wasn't premature, but it felt a little bit in bad taste because McCumby he was, he's on the ropes getting teed off, but he did trade back in that moment, and then literally, the referee jumps in as the bell sounding. Obviously, he's dipped down onto the rope, so you could say that it should probably be classed as a knockdown, but the referee's jumped in to wave it off. The bell's just gone, but not only that is like he was still exchanging with Caleb Plant at that moment, and he was actually landing as well. So even though Caleb probably landed like 13 shots and he maybe only landed like 2 or 3, he was still exchanging. He wasn't like out on his feet just getting teed off on. So for it to have been stopped the way it was, seemed a little bit off. But I ultimately will just, I guess it was maybe one of those the writings on the wall kind of situations, but it was a very entertaining fight. Like I said, I saw it this morning. I watched it on Daily Motion. I was surprised at how entertaining it was. It was definitely fight of the night from what I saw. Then we had Erislandy Lara against Danny Garcia. Now I predicted, I said, look, if everything is the way it's supposed to be, and there's and things work out, then Lara should knock out Danny Garcia, and I did say it would probably be in those later rounds. I tentatively went for the points decision because I felt like there would be that there would possibly be a scenario where he'll just try to stay on his feet and stay away. But I did say if a knockout comes, I'm expecting it between rounds 8 to 9, and he ended up getting caught with a. It was almost like a reverse. It was a reverse backhand but lead hand jab with from the left side of Lara. He literally stepped in and went square up, and then threw the left hand like a jab, and it hit Danny Garcia square in the middle of the face, and it almost looks like it took his legs away to a degree, but he did a little stumble, then he just took a knee. He got back up, saw out the rest of the round, but then he said, his dad said, "Nah, it's over," and then the referee came over, and then dad said, "Look, it's up to you. It's up to you, Danny." And Danny said, "Yeah, I'm done." So he officially quit on his stool at the end of the ninth round. Erislandy Lara with his fourth consecutive knockout. And yeah, we'll see what he does moving forward. I mean, that could be a potential Terence Crawford bout for a belt at another weight if that's something he's interested in. He probably isn't, but if you just want to carry on making history and collecting the legacy, that could be an idea to go at. But yeah, all of that takes its way to the main event of the card. Again, I saw it this morning. It wasn't a competitive fight. I mean, Edgar Berlanga had some fleeting moments of success in a couple of rounds, but got knocked down heavily in the third round, clipped off of a short left hook, keeping his arms down, not holding his shape properly. Canelo busting up the body towards the back half of the fight, started beating up the arms to try and get them to lower down. There was a few low blow moments by Edgar Berlanga. There was some head clashes or some almost headbutts as well. Canelo hitting after the call to stop on a few occasions to say, no, you're not about to like roughhouse or take advantage of me, and vice versa on the other side. There was some definite street brawl type tactics employed by both guys on a couple of occasions in the ring. But yeah, at the end of the bout, look, Canelo didn't get the stoppage. I really thought he was going to get the stoppage, and it looked about sort of 7, 8, 9 rounds in that it was inevitable. It was coming. And to Edgar's credit, he tried to battle back, and he did better in the last few rounds than he did for the 9 rounds prior. But it was just, this is what happens when you skip steps. Like you don't have the necessary experience at a level good enough to be able to compete. Again, trading on just strength, youth, and maybe explosive punching power, thinking that was going to get it done. And unfortunately, it didn't. The cards were 118, 109 twice, and 117, 110. I struggled to see where they had 3 rounds for Edgar Berlanga, but in the later rounds they were a bit closer. So I guess maybe you'd say he might have won, 1 or 2 of the last rounds. But to me, the only round I could really, in my opinion, kind of give him consideration for was the 12th. So yeah, I really had him maybe winning 1 round, but it looked like a clean sweep from the whole, in my opinion, for the majority of it. But it kind of takes me back a little bit to when I did the interview with Alex Krassyuk when Alexander Usyk was about to face Daniel Dubois, and he said to me that Daniel will experience severe beatings in this fight, but those beatings will change him and make him a better fighter down the road. And since that fight, you've seen the change and everything that's happened in Daniel Dubois. So it's almost like Alex Krassyuk was a prophet, understanding that the experience and what you're about to receive in this ring is actually going to pay dividends later on. Well, we'll see if Edgar Berlanga has that same heart and desire and ability to improve and get better, because for as much steps as he skipped, there was no greater lesson and experience that he's going to gain than from this fight if he hones in and takes it to the next level. and then, you know, use and go back to sort of the level where he should be and work his way back up to that elite level. And if he does that, same as what Daniel Dubois did, then yeah, the future could look bright for him. But in terms of this fight, it wasn't particularly like that entertaining, to be honest. It was just a routine beatdown for the majority of it. It wasn't a boring or a horrible fight, but it wasn't like a good fight either. It was just, yeah, it was just a routine beatdown for like 8, 9, 10 rounds. So I do feel bad for anyone who purchased the fight, especially in the US, $90. Ugh. The only fight to me on the card that I've only seen 3 fights, but the only good fight was Plant versus McCumby, and I don't think anyone expected that to be the case. So yeah, Lara and Garcia was horrible until it ended, and you know, the main event was just extremely it was almost as one-sided as the Jamel Charlo fight, but the only difference is at least Edgar tried to fire back towards the end, as opposed to just staying on the ropes and staying on the periphery. But yeah, the John Ryder fight was better. The Munguia fight was better. I mean, to a lesser extent, you might even say that at least the Avni Yildirim fight had more I guess more intrigue and not intrigue. That's the wrong word. It had more of a definitive finish to it, I will say. And maybe think it felt a bit more satisfying at the event and all of that leading up to Undisputed. But yeah, look, it is what it is. I am interested to see what Berlanga does moving forward. If he just tries to jump back into another big fight, then I know he hasn't learnt the lessons that he needs to learn. But as for Canelo, there's not very many options he's got left now, especially not at the price point he's putting himself at. So we'll wait and see. I mean, if it's gonna be Conor McGregor, is it gonna be Jake Paul? Those are the only 2 big money fights he's got left outside of a Benavidez fight, which is not gonna happen for either guy. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on it. That's sort of the weekend in a nutshell. It was okay. You know, I'm happy. I'm content. I didn't, you know, pay the £20 to watch it live. But yeah, hope you guys, whoever did watch it, enjoyed. And if you didn't, I hope that I hope this little recap satiates you until we get to Tuesday, when I get a chance to watch all the fights properly and you know, analyze them for the breakdown. But yeah, don't forget Fight Talk Live, the new channel with myself, October Red, Danny Glover, and Maestro Boxing. We do have another episode tonight, 9 o'clock, live on the Fight Talk Live channel. So make sure you tune into that one. And then yeah, I will catch everyone on the next bout of videos that I do this week. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.